Welcome to another episode of the Self-Storage Insight Podcast. I'm Ben Shirey, and today I'm excited to be joined by two guests. Today, Brett Copper with Copper Storage Management is with me, and Brett and I have done some episodes together. And Brett, thank you as always for jumping on the podcast today. And today, for the first time, we have Scott Worden with us from StorSuite. And so, Scott, great to make your acquaintance here, and excited to have this conversation today. So today we're going to kind of direct the conversation towards the future of the self-storage customer, and what is the future looking like for the customer, and what are they wanting to see? How can we better service the customers with self-storage? And so, Scott, maybe I'll just kind of direct the first question to you. Is going to be, how can storage companies use technology to enhance a customer's experience or that customer relationship?
Yeah, I think first of all, integrating technology is not an all or nothing. So sometimes people get enamored with, we got to do everything. A lot of companies like Brett's it's a blend, and so there's always going to be people involved, and so when you're looking at technology, you got to see how it fits your business model, and keep in mind that the consumer's changing, and the consumers are getting a lot younger, and they have a lot of other needs that we really haven't addressed before. And so since the pandemic, I would say the adoption has escalated in our industry, but we're still pretty far behind a lot of the other industries as they adopt technology.
Yeah, for sure. And on that too, the landscape is getting more competitive as well, right? So the storage facilities in your area are advancing with the technology solutions that they're offering, as well as everybody's trying to figure out how can we keep occupancies up? How can we keep our retention up? How can we get new customers in the door? And so there's been a lot of technology released to kind of assist with that. But it all plays a little bit of a different role in what you implement and how you implement it. And for sure, Brett, do you have any other additional thoughts on that?
No, I really like what Scott said, that, every company kind of has a different approach to it. I think the industry has gotten such an explosion of new technology over the last few years. The difficult thing to decipher and kind of govern yourself is there's a lot of tech out there that seems really cool and it can be very cool. And so people are kind of too quick sometimes to just go ahead and adopt all of the new, hot products. The problem is, are you really going to get use out of them? Are there, is it going to be a benefit either to the facility operationally or to the tenants? What's the cost going to be? And so I think really trying to understand, not be too quick to just say yes to everything and look at products. Somebody like Scott that's been, every software company or tech company he's been with in the industry over the years have all had really practical, good use products. But there are a lot of products that maybe don't make sense for us now in other areas with other companies. So you just have to be kind of careful about not using products that aren't going to be practical. That's kind of my biggest piece right now.
Right, for sure. And one of the things I always think about too, when you're looking at implementing new technology, is the implementation process, right? Because a lot of this technology can do crazy things, and it can do more than you can even comprehend that it's going to be able to do. The problem usually lies within the implementation of, can your management team figure out how to implement that to the lower levels of management or across your employee roles? Just one of the ones I've been working with a lot more for our company internally is HubSpot, right? And I think, Brett, you use HubSpot. I've seen the link, I think, in your calendar, but man, it can do some crazy things, but there's hours and hours and months of training courses on these features. And so implementing technology always sounds awesome and it can do awesome things, but you have to really make sure you have a plan of how you're going to implement that and kind of your strategy behind how the business is going to use it.
That's exactly right.
100% agree. Yep.
Awesome. And so, Brett, what are you seeing in terms of technology that's being implemented at facilities right now that you guys are working with?
Yeah, so I think kind of the first ones to be kind of all-encompassing would be, if you'd asked me a year or two ago, I would say online rentals. But now, if you're not doing online rentals, you're in the Stone Age at this point. I think people are getting much better about new communication channels with tenants. So, utilizing texting, automated messaging, utilizing website, chat bots, having that be a point of contact. I think the more points of contact you can give potential consumers, I think the happier the base will be because different people prefer to work with and interact with your company in different ways. I think you're seeing a rise in products like StorSuite's an example of, trying to find a way to put a product in the marketplace that will give you more ability to talk with the tenant, more interactions while providing some really good efficiencies. Like, we realize that we get way too many calls about gate codes. I mean, some exorbitant percent of our, service calls are gate codes. And so when you can find a product like they have where, the consumer has readily available a map of where their unit is, what their gate code is, the ability to pay their bill, the ability to look at resources and facts online to get their questions answered without having to just tie up your phone lines and create a big expense. I think those efficiency products are really, really important. And so I think any way that we can make what we're doing more easy and automated, but then not selling out the customer and saying, hey, you're on your own. We're not going to give you real people behind those products. It's a combination of the two, but you certainly see a huge rise in how can we better spend the resources we have so they're not spending their time dealing with really easily automated responses to questions or processes that make the tenant's life quicker and easier and then make our life easier as the operator.
For sure. Scott, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about some of the stuff that you're working on there that Brett had referenced?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that, because we have access to data, operators are now becoming more analytical and figuring out how they can reduce staff hours and time and maximize, their group. So with that said, by looking at that data, Brett knows majority of his service calls what the percentage is. And so by reducing that using technology, by having a system like StorPass, where it has the gate code available on there, allows them to be able to reduce those calls coming in and allow them to focus on more important things like renting. So Brett had mentioned kind of online rentals is now table stakes. If you don't have online rentals on your website, you're way behind the curve. And so if you are proactive in your communications, it's going to reduce those calls coming in. Being able to reach out to your tenants, I would say pre-pandemic, it was really unheard of where you wanted to communicate with your tenants because you were afraid they're going to move out. And the communication, so out of sight, out of mind, you've got people on auto pay, and all of a sudden for 10 plus years, they've been renting a unit, and like they might second guess themselves. Fast forward to now, that is part of how this younger generation wants to be communicated. They want to be able to have a text message, a push notification, an email, be able to take care of things without talking to a human being. I've got two teenage daughters, and I know firsthand that if they don't want to talk to me, but if I ask Alexa or send a text, they might actually respond to me.
Right, for sure. I mean, and that's how even like I've rented units from other people in the area as far as around my business and stuff where it's a convenient location. And if I can't just rent online without calling into somebody, I'm finding somewhere else to go. And that's just, I mean, I'm older than your daughters probably, but it's Brett and I's age as well. I don't want to have to call customer support. I want to go on your website and figure out how to do what I want to do. And that demand is going to continue to grow. It's not going to go the other direction where people are going to want to be less liberated with what they're working with your software or from renting from you or anything like that.
Yeah, to Scott's point too, we went overboard with apps. It was there was a huge flurry for a couple of years where every product just started making apps. And what we realized with storage is downloading an app and utilizing it when most people go to their unit maybe once a month, once every 2 months. It's not a high traffic business once they've rented it. Downloading an app to rent a unit is not an efficient way to get the transaction done. It's too much It's too many points before the sale is actually closed. It's too much information to put in. You're not going to utilize it. So now I think you're seeing these products where they're saying, "Now we're going to get away from that because it's not being used. It's deterring people, and let's just make it really convenient." Pieces like a wallet pass, like a web page to be able to rent from, like a rental center. All of those types of touch points are getting much higher adopted than the apps do. And so I think that's been a very smart transition in our industry. Apps sound great, but they're very expensive to build, very expensive to maintain, and we just don't have a good adoption rate. I have probably 400 apps on my phone. I maybe use 10 of them on a regular basis, and I get obnoxious notifications from the rest of apps I had to download to be able to do something out there in the world. And I'm too lazy to uninstall it. I'll probably never do it again, but it's frustrating. So anytime I go somewhere and it's like, all right, you're going to need an app to be able to do business with us. I think millennials and younger are like, I don't want to do this anymore. Give me something that is less of a touch point, that's easier, quicker, and I'm not having to, give up this freedom in my phone to have to interact with your business that way. So I think that's a good change that we're getting away from that.
For sure. Yeah. And to that point as well, I mean, when I download a new app, I automatically say, don't allow notifications.
Yeah.
Right. So if all of a sudden you download a storage facilities app and you rent from them and you turn off notifications, well, now that just cuts off the communication that you think is automated with. So there is definitely some, some downsides to it where text notifications have been, I feel like, more useful anyway than push notifications were for a lot of those companies. Kind of staying on that same topic though, so we're seeing like the demographic shift, towards Gen Z, millennials. How has that kind of influenced Storage's approach to customer service? Scott, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I would, as we're trying to predict the future a few years ago, there was several trade shows I would go to that the concern was the younger generation was not going to rent. They don't have the same buying habits. They don't own houses. They don't accumulate stuff. And so there is a big concern. And so now we're realizing they are renting. They're the type of rental, the needs are different. And so they enjoy more experiences. So therefore, they want to have a smaller place to live, but they do need a place to store things. And so they're using storage in a much different light. They're going online. They aren't wanting to talk to very many people, if anybody at all. And they will put themselves on auto pay. The length of stay is increasing in our industry. But the behavior has changed, and now we have to adopt and have the customer experience and actually personalize that experience for that new consumer.
Sure. Cause yeah, one of the questions I would have to that would be like, how do you personalize an experience for somebody that doesn't want to communicate with you? That's going to be a challenge that we're going to face, for sure. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea behind the wallet pass. So Zach Bolton, he's kind of the brainchild behind it. And so the thought was, if you have an easier way to download a wallet pass. So a lot of people now are used to having this mobile wallet, whether you're using an Android phone or an Apple, and they have their airline ticket in there. And so it's the same thing where it's easy to download and then access. But now by using that technology, and when that consumer goes to your property, it actually will do a push notification and welcome them to the property, allow them to be able to have a lot of ways to access the property that, let's face it, they're renting the unit online. They've never stepped foot on the property. How do they know where to go? And so by encompassing digital and physical items, so you got maps and you're using QR codes and NFC technology, which allows them to tap and get information, but guide them to their unit. without having to call, a call center or walk into an office.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds awesome. I haven't actually even seen the Wallet Pass or a demo of it or whatever. I'd really be curious to check it out though and see what you're working on there. That's all. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
bet.
to Scott hit something really really important. So one of my favorite talks that I do around the country was last year the SSA demand study that came out in March for 2023 was really really eye opening for a lot of people. And so I built a presentation around it. And the very beginning of that presentation is for years, exactly what Scott said. All of the experts in the industry, analysts, all said storage is going to hurt when millennials and Gen Z get older. Because in our minds, exactly what he said. For my generation, your generation, Ben, it's like we don't buy things the same way that our parents and our grandparents bought products, and we don't value those things. Our goods are much less quality. So we're buying from Wayfair, Amazon, all these places. Your furniture doesn't last 50 years like it used to when it was solid wood and made well. Now you move and you just throw it away and get new cheap stuff. And at the very beginning of that presentation, that's what it starts off with. And the next slide is we were dead wrong. We couldn't have been more wrong because, like he said, it changed the need for storage, but we've already millennials are the highest renting population by a long shot. Gen Z is almost taken the number two spot. They're like neck and neck with Gen X. So it's really interesting to see how quickly that changed, how wrong we were, which is a great thing for the business. But we had to pretty much overnight tell everybody you've got to change the way that you're communicating because you didn't realize it. If you would have asked before that study came out, anyone would have told you, oh, by far the boomers and Gen X are the ones that are renting all of our storage units. Just wasn't true whatsoever. And we just didn't realize it. I think people weren't paying attention enough to the actual data. And I think there is no secret to customizing the experience, but you have to give as many options for the experience as possible. You give them every single channel you could think of as a way to communicate, to rent from you, to pay their bill, because then you're whatever they end up wanting, whether that is to go over the phone for a rental, whether that's to text and rent a unit, whether that's to go on a wallet pass, be able to pay their bills or chat with you directly there, to use chat bots, FAQs, anything you can think of. The more options you get, you're still going to appease the masses. You're always going to have some people that are pissed because you don't do it some very strange eclectic way, but as a whole providing those options kind of like a buffet, you're going to trap in and attract the vast majority of possible tenants, and they're going to be happy overall because you've given them those options.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, for sure. As far as giving them options and then letting them pick and choose which pieces of it they're going to use. Absolutely. It's a must. And if people do want to contact the facility, somebody has to be able to answer. I think I've heard a lot of, even from other podcasts that I listen to and stuff, about how much more focus this year has been put on operations of the facility and making sure we have good customer support, because you are still going to get a lot of tenants that want to call in before they commit to reserve online and make a payment online. So having all of those options available is crucial. Scott, I'll direct, I guess, the next question towards you in terms of what advice would you give to storage operators that are looking to modernize their facility a little bit?
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of the original questions is, they need to evaluate their business model and see what areas they need to improve. The first thing certainly I would do is see what you have. Are you utilizing, maximizing what you have? To be able to see, do you know the behaviors? Are you getting a lot of service related calls that are coming in that might be preventing you from missing rentals? And what is your storefront typically is your website. What does that look like? Do you know what the behaviors are on the website? Are people actually able to use it and rent a unit? So by evaluating first and foremost what you have, what you're looking to accomplish, then going to look to see what can solve it. So what is the pain point you have, and what do you need to solve it?
great insight. And I run into a lot of people like that when I'm demoing software or showing them, some of the stuff that our software does, and they don't even really know what they're looking for yet, right? They're just kind of
Sure.
like, and again, there are people that are going to be just shopping around and seeing what other tech is in the industry, and I get all that. But at the same time, if you're serious about, improving your facility, you kind of do need to evaluate what pieces would it best benefit your business, and where should you put your money first, or your time involvement as far as updating the facility. So yeah, great answer as far as evaluate before you do anything else. Brett, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think making sure as well that there is some ROI, right? An example I give as well was ACH. A lot of facilities don't make sense to offer ACH because at the end of the day, there are usually separate bank fees, a minimum that you have to pay to be able to process those. And if you only have two tenants, three tenants that are going to pay ACH, doesn't make business sense to do it. You're better off to only take, a debit, credit, something like that, because that ends up being a bad business decision. So don't change your process or put features in that are only going to be used by a handful of people, because you end up muddying the process. It makes it harder to provide good, consistent customer service. It makes it more confusing to the tenants, I think, from an overarching point. So, kind of goes back to that very first question you asked of just because it is available, it's cool, or it looks new, always see how it's actually going to be used. Is it practical? Does the cost make sense? And is it going to be, a used product that you're offering that you're going to get some value out of?
Yeah, and I'll just throw this out there, some semi plug for my business, but not the ACH thing is brought up to us all the time. Like our platform, our property management software, we accept payments right through it, and so we allow for credit, debit, or ACH. And there's no minimums or anything on any of those. But man, we run into so many customers of ESS or our other competitors that they're having these chargeback fees where, when they go to pull the funds appear to be there. And then when they actually go to draw them 2 days later, they're not there. And so then they get a retrieval fee or a chargeback fee. And yeah, a lot of these processing companies are passing that on to the business. And yeah, we talked to a business just the other day that was, I mean, they were paying hundreds of dollars a month in ACH chargeback fees because they get hit for 25 bucks every time one of those happens. And so yeah, understanding those processes, but there are companies that do handle those a little bit differently.
Good.
And yeah, we don't charge anything as far as for chargebacks with our software either. So that's been able to help some people have more options without incurring additional fees.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, we call it that's I think you're seeing more disruptors, right? I think what you guys have built as a product, same thing with StorSuite. I mean, honestly, you both do it very differently for the approach not to be an app with StorSuite and to be a wallet pass and have less friction is a disruption, I think, compared to what everybody else has been doing, and it's the right disruption. And then for you guys as well with your CC software, like the fact that you're not going to be charging those, the fact you don't have monthly fees for your software, and you're making the money on the transaction fees, so that it saves the owner's money. I think those are all disruptions that we've needed because everyone else keeps doing it the same way, and that's not a way to grow the industry. So I think both the products, it's kind of interesting finally having you guys meet up because you're both taking a disruption approach, doing things differently, innovating in products that have been around in some way, shape, or form for a while now, but you're doing it in a much more advanced, more efficient way.
Yeah, for sure. Scott, I guess I'll direct this question towards you. What are some of the future trends that you see that storage is going to face over the next couple of years, and how can we kind of prepare for those?
Yeah. So I guess probably what I would say is, we now are getting back to the normal, what we call traditional sales cycle. And so operators that jumped in during the boom in the last several years, and now are starting to realize we've got a cycle in this business. And basically what I mean by that is you've got rental seasons, which is right now, and then it kind of dissipates later on as we get into fall and starts to pick up in different aspects. That means you got to work. And so you had mentioned earlier that we've got more competition coming in. The REITs have always had all this data and analytics, and they've been utilizing that, and we're quickly able to present, so our companies like yours and I, we can present this to a single operator and give them the same tools to be able to do that. But we got to be able to have revenue management. You got to be able to have new ways to drive business so that you get more tenants to your location. Sometimes it's just going back to some of the old school stuff. If you've got an on-site manager, are they now going back to those apartment complexes, the office buildings? Are they making those connections and making sure they're utilizing every resource possible?
Yeah, I feel like with the boom that we had over the last few years, everybody got away from the grind. You didn't have to hustle. You didn't have to do that sort of stuff to try to make sure you were relevant in your neighborhood or your market. And yeah, it's shifting back.
Well, the crazy returns, right? So it's not just like a stock. A stock is not always going to go up. At some point, it's going to have to level out or even go down at some point. And so being able to be prepared for that and looking at where it should have been. And so when we look at the numbers at these state association meetings I go to, the national meetings I go to, they look at where it really should be. And so they're like, we're still pretty dang good. It's down, but it's good. It's better than what would have been trending on a normal cycle.
Yeah. Brett, how is if I can direct this to you, how has the busy season been going for you with the properties that you manage?
Yeah, we finally had one. 2023 was the infamous, for anybody that doesn't know, Storable had reported, after the summer last year that for the first time since they started tracking move in, move out behavior, that from May through August, it was negative move in to move out ratio. And that hasn't, even in 2008, I don't believe that happened. So very, very different compared to what we've experienced forever. I think it freaked a lot of people out. You had all the big guys and small guys, frankly, reporting losses and really dips in projections and all sorts of stuff that we're just not used to. And now we finally had the normal busy season pre-pandemic that we've had for 20 years. We've actually seen the uptick. Occupancies grew significantly, revenue grew significantly, street rates picked back up. Promotions were, not everyone was doing 3 months 50% off or even 2 months free, 3 months free. It started to normalize back to what we're used to, which is great for everyone. Finally to be able to pick up. And I think it was really welcomed for a lot of reasons, but a lot of new development has slowed dramatically. So new supply coming in really took a halt after the beginning of last year through now. And so we're going to have a window, going into next season, especially where we're going to be very undersupplied again. And you're going to see an even busier season than the busy season we had this year. And it'll probably level back out the next year when all that new supply catches up. So it's great for anybody, right, that's in now or that's looking to purchase or that's going to be opening now. You've got a pretty good runway, but we certainly were very excited. I think we had a very large number of our bigger portfolios had record, months in May, June, July that had been around even for 2 years because of all the changes post-COVID that we had in the industry and interest rates. So very exciting. Very good place to be in, certainly today compared to last year.
Yeah, definitely feels a little bit better when you're talking to people and they're a little bit more excited about storage again versus the doom and gloom it felt like was starting to hit some people through the winter and stuff of last year. But yeah, that's awesome to hear. Well, as we kind of start to wrap it up here, Scott, do you have any last words you'd like to add in? Any plugs for your business? Anything that you guys are working on that you'd like to share?
So I always like to make sure everybody knows if you haven't joined your state self-storage association, do it. The resources are amazing there. The operators, the vendors, this industry is pretty amazing. So if you're really trying to look at where you need to go, what to do, start there. And then the national shows do an incredible job. They all provide educational sessions, they have expos, but utilize all the resources that you have so then you can make some pretty good decisions based off of other people's kind of pitfalls and successes.
For sure. And one last question for you, Scott, is I love the jacket. I need to figure out where you got it.
Okay, so if you know John Manus is he's the chairman of our board and kind of helped consolidate and get all the companies together to bring StorSuite together in January. He started off with a jacket, and so when we
Pinnacle.
went to our Pinnacle, yes, Pinnacle Self Storage. He's got a book, so if you want to read something, John's got a book. It's on Amazon, so it's John Manus. But also the jacket kind of gave us an identity, and so allow us to be able to kind of reinvent ourselves as StorSuite. And basically what StorSuite is, it's a consolidation of existing companies. We've got a website marketing company. We have the tech company like the StorPass that we have. We have tenant protection. We also own and manage stores. Mm-hmm. So it allows us to, because we're a marketing company, our marketing team said, we got to get a little pizzazz and stand out. And that's what it does. It certainly gives the attention that we're looking for.
That's awesome.
I'll shout out. They had one of the coolest marketing ploys I've ever seen at a show. And so this last year, was it in DC? Was that the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in DC, they got a guy that was on one of the episodes of Ink Masters who actually lives here in Nashville, where I live. And he has a shop, I think, in Franklin. So he came and gave free owl themed tattoos at the DC show in front of everybody. And so the whole show, you would walk by and there'd be like 100 people surrounding their booth, all watching people get tattoos. And Damon Emerson, who's been in the industry forever, known him since I was probably a kid, got one of the coolest owl tattoos I've seen, and he's a part of their protection plan program. So it's very, very cool marketing ploy, I have to say.
That's awesome. That's what you always need to do too. If you're going to be at a show, do something to set you apart and make your booth stand out or make your company stand out. That's awesome. Brett, any closing thoughts from you on the future of the self-storage customer?
No, I think the biggest one is, I know I can speak for everybody here because I know the type of guys we all are and the companies that we have. Anybody here is a good resource, and any of us will spend time, talking, giving some information, whether you want to do business with us or not. It's not a big deal. The industry is a very welcoming place. Everyone's very open and honest with information. So don't feel bad about reaching out to any of us to talk about tech or the future, what's going on in the industry, anything you can. And we're more than happy to help, at any point.
Awesome, for sure. And Scott, we'll start with you. Best way to get a hold of you if somebody wants to reach out, has questions, or wants to learn about your business?
Yeah, so I put it on my my title here. It's Scott W at StorSuite.com. It's StorSuite.com. Or feel free to call me on my personal cell, 602-206-8389. StorSuite.com also just allows you a resource there as well.
Awesome. Brett.
Brett, BRETT at coppersm.com. So COPPERSM.com or copperstoragemanagement.com. And my number's all over that as well. Feel free to call me at any point.
Yeah. And I will say storage is just a little bit of a different industry. We're okay with giving out personal cell phone numbers and everybody's always open to helping people out and giving out information. So yeah, it's an awesome industry to be in for sure.
It is. It's fun to talk about. We love talking storage. We want to be able to be a resource. We'll point you in the right direction. We don't do everything, but we know that we can certainly point you in the right direction because we probably know somebody.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Self-Storage Insight Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a quick reminder, this episode was brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a no-cost property management software that allows you to pass the fees for credit card processing on to your tenants, freeing up some CapEx space for your business and helping you more efficiently run your storage facility. If you'd like to learn more about CC Storage, click the link in the description below, and we hope to see you again for our next episode.